Hi there. Welcome to my presentation on the change management simulation. My name is Elijah Cruz. So the motive for change within the simulation was to basically convince the team that a dramatic change in the organization's strategy and products is necessary and that environmental sustainability is critical to the company's future. Big Mart had recently made a policy to promote all products which bear a green stamp, manufacturing certification for environmental friendliness. So reducing the petrochemical raw materials such as the polycarbonate plastics in the manufacturing process from 90% to 50% within 2 years. So this will not only allow us, Spectrum, to remain in contract with Big Mart, but to develop new products focusing on design and price that differentiate us from our competitors. After the talk with their VP, there was like a not so subtle threat that if we don't respond within 3 months with a detailed implementation plan, Big Mart will consider canceling all of our contracts with them and shift to a competitor who will change. So I feel like strategies are very important. So I decided to, before beginning the simulation, I assessed the impact of the issue and it was urgent. So we want to discard of the old and embrace the new as quickly as we can. We only have 3 months. So after reviewing the nature of the change, I decided to implement Cotter's 8-step model. So with 1, creating a sense of urgency. This isn't simply a matter of showing people the poor sales statistics or talking about the increased competition. You have to have an open and honest and convincing dialogue about what's happening within the marketplace and within the competition. So honest discussions, dynamic and convincing reasons to get people thinking and talking. Number 2, form a power of coalition. Having visible company members united behind the vision sends a powerful message and quickly helps support this, spread the support. So convincing people that change is in fact necessary. Managing change isn't enough. You must really lead it. So working on team building within the change coalition. Number 3, where we create a vision for change. Making that vision clear and understandable is paramount to achieving the change we desire. When people see for themselves what we're trying to achieve, then the directives they're given tend to make more sense. Number 4 being communicating the vision. To effectively institute the change, we must repeat it every chance we get and show the behavior that we wish to see. We must walk the talk, per se. 5 being removing any obstacles. So gaining momentum from the vision, we must give ourselves the best chance by removing any obstacles to adopt the new ideas. So that resistance to change. Looking at organizational structure, job descriptions and performance, compensation systems to ensure that they're in line with the vision. 6 being creating short-term wins. Revising the reward system. Short-term victories are great motivators for those who are working on the new vision and a great way to combat any naysayers or critics from the vision. 7, building on the change. After every win, analyze what went right and what needs improving. And lastly, 8, anchoring these changes within the corporate culture. Corporate culture often determines what gets done, so the values behind the vision must be shown within the day-to-day work. Making continuous efforts to ensure that change is seen in every aspect of the organization, talking about progress every chance we get, and telling success stories and changing processes and repeating other stories that you hear. So I feel like implementing the 8-step model will help with getting things done. So measuring progress and success was basically done by monitoring the impact of credibility, organizational phase of adoption, the weeks used, and critical mass. If a specific lever that I pulled was done at the wrong time, I assessed the damages and changed my perspective for the next lever. The main goal was to get everyone within the organization from the awareness phase to the adoption phase, which turned out to be successful. And we'll see that at the end slide here. So I'm going to bring you guys through my simulation. I thought it would be easier than trying to explain it because I'm a very visual person. So with this one, week 8, I decided to clarify organizational values. And organizational values, they're often unconscious guides to organizational behavior. So by making these values more explicit, better alignments are created. If properly executed, pulling this lever can directly influence targets in interest or trial phase. I think I pulled this at the wrong time because obviously it was something that was unfortunate and the lever only worked on interest or trial targets. This did not work for me. So moving on to week 10, where I decided to take a different approach. So I decided to actually walk the talk. And this is when the change agent's actions are aligned with the change initiative, trust can be built, and effective change is more likely. So I also didn't really pull this at a proper time because not everyone really understood what I was demonstrating. I didn't really clearly communicate what the change initiative was, so that was really on me. So come week 11, I decided to get that notice out. So I decided to issue that email notice, which is like an organization-wide email. They help to convey the vision and indicate progress. So if it was properly executed, it usually happens before the trial stage, and this was a really good thing that happened because I gained 19 people to be aware, and my company ended up moving to the movement phase. Moving on to week 14, I decided to hold some town hall meetings, which I feel like didn't really have enough credibility to, go well. So this was something that I also struggled with, was holding a town meeting. I decided to change my motive again. So come week 17, still following Carter's 8-step model, I decided to get some support from consultants. And this didn't really help my company change phases, but it brought people to the interest tab. So I went from awareness to being interested in it, and I think that's pretty good for me. So I had enough credibility and properly timed this lever, and it increased my credibility rating and influenced my change targets before the trial stage. So sometimes getting outside experts, they can gain the attention of organizational members and jolt them out of their complacency better than internal authorities can. So that's why I decided to go with that. Moving on to the following week, which is week 18, I decided to do some private interviews because they can actually reveal some important information about change, such as who's in the networks, how the target feels about the change initiative. This allowed me to gain 3 people on the interest side, so nobody was aware, now everybody was interested, which even though I didn't have enough credibility and it says this was not really properly timed to pull this lever, I think it actually helped me with forming more people to be interested. Moving on to week 19, I decided to try and tell a success story because storytelling is a relatively slow but effective way to challenge and redirect the norms and values of the company culture. I moved 2 people to the trial phase. My company didn't really change on their effects. And I did have enough credibility that properly timed this lever to be pulled. So this was a win-win all around. I positively influenced, people and listeners as well as their friends to adopt the initiative in any of them, if they were in the awareness stage, as well as if they're in the interest stage. Obviously, I would have wanted more people to go from the trial stage, but, very slow and steady wins the pace. Wins the race. So moving on to week 23, building a coalition of support. And for me personally, I feel like this is something that seemed to work the most for me. So negotiations create political alliances, and they can be crucial for obtaining commitment to a change initiative. Pulling this lever positively influenced adoption of the sustainability initiative by any target in the interest and trial phase, along with their friend network. So for me, it seemed to work. This is the first time I pulled this lever, and it very much boosted me up from where I wanted to be. So I also used it, you'll see, in week 82 and week 94, and they also did benefit me for the change for my company. Moving on to week 25, I decided to provide some internal skill building. And some associates, they would want to adopt a change, which they don't really know how. So having that skill building, but it didn't really do any change for me on my effects on the people or on the organization. So it kind of really was a wasted lever pull. Redirecting myself and taking that loss into week 29, I decided to announce some goals and some deadlines. Organizational goals and deadlines, they provide targets to aim for. So organizational attention and focus are precious resources. Pulling this lever positively influenced adoption of this sustainability initiative throughout the organization. So as you can see, I got one more adoption and one more person who was along the trial, as opposed to everyone being interested. Now there's a really big gap here. So week 45, this is where I decided to try and restructure the organization. I think it was really early on, but I was like, we're halfway through. Let me just try it out. It wasn't really a successful lever pull as well. And that's on me. But I just want to move on to week 49. In week 49, I decided to try some external skill building, and this is where the trainees expand their capacity to adopt change. I got someone more to adopt the change, which I was super stoked about, even though it says, you do have sufficient credibility and properly time this lever pull. I feel like just having that one extra person who's really all into it, it just really makes a difference, and it shows that what I'm doing is working. So week 52, recognizing the adopters. So political power accrues to those who are formally recognized within organizations, and recognizing an advocate sends a signal to others as to where the power is flowing. So this positively influenced adoption. As you can see, we got one more adoption and then one more person in the trial phase. So I was really happy that the interest phase is kind of like going down and more people are working towards adopting the change. In week 64, I tried to revise the reward system. It didn't really have any effect on anybody. So, yeah, it didn't really affect anything. I was hoping to influence the adoption of the organization by changing the way our reward system worked, but it required, credibility and careful timing. So I feel like I could have waited a little bit to push that lever, if I'm being honest here. Week 68, I did conduct some private interviews. So conducting some private interviews, they really allowed for change for the target. So who's in their social network, how the target feels about the change. And I think this obviously helps me because we got more people in our trial phase as opposed to in our interested. Week 70, I decided to post a progress report, and this really helped me gain more people's trial phase from the interest. So posting progress reports, which is like a common means of just using visible cultural artifacts and symbols to redirect the cultural norms. Now here we have week 73, and as I said, getting that consultant's support, it really gained another person on my trial phase, and it helps me to increase my credibility and rating. So it influences all the targets before the trial stage, which I was very happy about. Moving on to week 75, I decided to walk the talk, and this is where it made all the difference. I was kind of scared to pull this lever because I pulled it earlier in the past and it didn't really work. I mean, it was only in the couple, few weeks of this whole change being implemented, but nonetheless, I decided to walk the talk again, and I gained more people in our adoption phase. So now, although the phases didn't change, but I had more people. Everyone was either in trial or adoption, which is a good sign because we only have 90 something weeks to finish this, and I was on week 75, so I'm like, it's capable, I can do it. And trust was definitely built, and effective change is more likely. So pulling this lever, it basically increased my credibility and positively influenced the targets. So now moving on to week 78. So I think that this was something that I struggled with, was holding town hall meetings. I just kind of felt like, all the levers were there, so maybe I kind of had to pull them. But in reality, it just didn't work out the way I wanted it to. I feel like town hall meetings is a good way to get everyone on the same page because there's like a two-way dialogue opportunity. But unfortunately, I failed to attract participants at my town hall meeting because it didn't work really in the trial phase. So I had to kind of wait a little later for the adoption phase to use this. Week 82, I decided, like I said, what seemed to work the most was to build a coalition of support. There was really no change on this, though, even though I was successful in the past with pulling this lever. However, week 90 comes, and we have 11 more people that are in the adoption phase due to me being able to clarify some organizational values. And my effect on my organization, the company actually entered the sustain phase. So organizational values, they're more unconscious guides to organizational behavior. By making these values more explicit, better alignment is created, and it really influenced these targets that were in the trial stage, which I was very happy to see. In week 94, this is where it all came to an end, and a very happy ending, as I can say. Building a coalition of support, like I said, this seemed to work the most for me. I gained everyone to be on the adoption phase, and it worked out great. So the only phase I feel like was a really big no-no for me was the restructuring the organization back in week 45. I think that was just really tough for me because I pulled it at such an early time. If I would have waited a little longer to restructure the organization, maybe in week 90 or week 80 or something a little later along those lines, restructuring just can't come out of the blue. It takes time, it takes people's support, etc. So I feel like that's something that I should have done better. And that didn't really work for me, but obviously building the coalition, it definitely helped boost my company to change. So what was the result? Because I keep, saying that everything went good, it's a happy ending. So these are my results. After working through the change for simulation, power, and influence, my results were as follows. Proving the success of my selected strategic plan. So you currently have 20 adopters of the proposed sustainability initiative within the team management at Spectrum and have used 94 weeks to do so. As you may recall, your change efficiency ratio, CER, is the number of advocates gained divided by the number of weeks used, or 0.21. Due to the change leadership skills, a critical mass of managers within the firm has adopted the sustainability for initiative. As a result, you have succeeded in bringing about an important organizational change, and the future looks bright for not only Spectrum and the natural environment, but also for your career. So nonetheless, everything worked out. Following Coder's 8-step model was definitely very helpful for me because I was able to create that sense of urgency and form that powerful coalition, which I feel like, hence again, it really worked for me. That lever really helped me to change the company structure. I tried to create the vision for change as well as communicating that vision, removing obstacles, creating those short-term wins by attempting to change the way we deal with our reward systems, building on that change, and then anchoring the change within corporate culture. So that was my trial run. These are my references, and thank you so much for listening. I hope this all made sense to you. This was a very good run for me. It only took me one try, so, very happy about that. And like I said, Coder's 8-step model just helped me re-guide myself when I felt like I didn't know what lever to pull or when to pull it. It really just gave me a sense of direction. So thank you so much for hearing. Have a good one.